and helps motorists easily find fast track and roadside assistance services. Visit go511.com or dial 511 on your phone.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
The Clippers get their first road win of the season. They were in San Antonio last night and won by 25. Best stat of the night belongs to James Harden. 10 assists and no turnovers in 28 minutes. The Lakers play Utah tonight at Crypto.com. 7 p.m. tip-off on TNT. Sad news in the Lakers family. The brother of former Lakers star Michael Cooper was fatally shot early Sunday morning in Washington Park, a park in Pasadena. Mickey Cooper was gunned down in the same park where he and Michael grew up playing basketball. Pasadena police have a 24-year-old male suspect in custody. Mickey Cooper was 64. UCLA's men's basketball team lost by 2 to number 4 Marquette in the Maui Invitational. The USC women's team got 15 points from freshman Juju Watkins to beat Seton Hall in a first-round tournament game in the Bahamas. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in celebrating the season of giving by being part of the solution. As we enjoy great food, family, warmth, and well wishes in whatever our festive tradition may be, we share the beauty of the season by reaching out to the less fortunate. Please help us to help others with the KBLA Cover the Houseless Cozy Community Coat and Blanket Drive. All you have to do is drop off new or clean, gently used winter coats and blankets in the KBLA lobby during business hours. Now through December 20th, all of the coats and blankets will be donated to unsheltered individuals and families experiencing houselessness. Simply bring your donation to 4434 Crenshaw Boulevard in Los Angeles, near Vernon Avenue, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. weekdays. That's 4434 Crenshaw in historic Leimert Park. During the holidays and every day, let's remember, we keep us safe. We keep us warm. We are the safety net. And together, we can cover the unsheltered. Get caught up in the spirit of the season, the spirit of love. Make a difference with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. I swear I wanted to make a rap album, but this is literally Where the Wind Blew Me. That's the name of the song by Andre 3000, for those of us who haven't had a chance to listen yet to the album. I'm so excited to welcome into the space with this amazing flute walk-on music, an author of more than 30 books and 100 scholarly articles and reviews. He's got the Moores Professorship of History and African American Studies at the University of Houston. He's got a PhD in history from Columbia, a JD from UC Berkeley, and a BA from Princeton. Dr. Gerald Horne, good morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
You know, we've been arguing about, well, not arguing, discussing Andre 3000's flute album. So I thought we'd, make it your walk-on music. Have you heard it? This is my first time hearing any of it. Do you like it? Do you think it's an amazing move or an abandonment of his fans?
No, I think it's reminiscent, actually, of Pharoah Sanders,
really?
The late Pharoah Sanders, and the late Alice Coltrane. In terms of the use of this sort of ethereal music, the bells, the various sounds, I like it. I mean, as I said, I like Alice Coltrane, I like Pharoah Sanders, and I like Andre.
Yeah, see that and take it from definitely the most powerful scholar in Texas. That's a southern cosign right there, Dr. Horne. How are you doing?
Oh, working as usual.
Yeah, it feels very intense in the world right now. You often talk about the things that could lead to World War III. We've discussed it in relation to China, in relation to Ukraine, and certainly what we see unfolding with Israel right now, and Hamas, and and the West Bank and all the surrounding areas. It feels very precarious in that sense too, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Particularly in light of what's happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. The ally of Iran, and therefore of Hamas, speaking of the so-called Houthis in Yemen, have hijacked a ship that they say belongs to an Israeli billionaire. And previous to that, they had been trying to shoot missiles from Yemen into southern Israel. Likewise, the ally of Iran, speaking of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, has virtually destroyed an Israeli base in northern Israel. Needless to say, Prime Minister Netanyahu has blamed this on Iran because I think that many in Israel feel that the only way Israel can escape this crisis is somehow to lure the United States into this conflict on their side, and not only help to destroy Hezbollah, perhaps destroy the Houthis, but also the big enchilada, speaking of Iran. But that's more than a notion. Iran has just unveiled a new missile. We also see that the United States is in a precarious position because already there are boycotts being launched against U.S. corporations like Coca-Cola, for example, because of U.S. Support and solidarity with Israel. And so this has led to this sharp division and fracturing in the United States itself. I'm sure you're following what's happening on campuses, what's happening with regard to the Congressional Black Caucus, Congressman Jamal Bowman and Andre Carson of Indiana, Cori Bush of St. Louis, Summer Lee of Pennsylvania, and how they're calling for a ceasefire and therefore are inviting primary challenges funded by the Zionist lobby. And, of course, there is the, frankly, anti-Jewish expressions by Elon Musk, which has unnerved many, but he has managed to mollify the Zionist lobby by saying that he's going to ban on X or Twitter the phrase decolonization and the phrase from the river to the sea, which is a Palestinian slogan. I thought he was a free speech absolutist.
Yeah, wow, there's a lot in what you just said. I mean, that right there is like an entire show. I want to kind of unpack a couple of the things. You talked about Yemen lobbying, attacking Israel. Why is Yemen, I get the allyship, but why is Yemen jumping into the fray? Don't they have enough problems of their own with, their own war?
Well, previously they were in conflict with the Saudis.
Right.
But in light of the fact that China brokered an entente, a kind of peace agreement between the Saudis and their purported sponsors, speaking of Iran, there's less pressure on the Yemenis. And you need to realize, and I'm sure you do, that on the so-called Arab street, there's a lot of unrest. In fact, one of the unforeseen consequences of this Palestinian crisis might be to shake some of these monarchies, particularly in Morocco, which had established diplomatic relations with Israel, and now their folks are on the streets, in Bahrain, which had done the same. And so I think that the Yemenis are just responding to popular pressure.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that China, I guess they would probably consider it a diplomatic triumph, right? That China deal is holding, and that
absolutely,
yeah. So that creates, like you said, less pressure, so folks can jump in, and you bring this up, this kind of warming of relations between Israel and the more wealthy Arab nations is definitely under duress with what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank, right?
Well, yeah, Israel is in real trouble because it's going to be next to impossible to destroy Hamas, which is their stated goal. Not only because, as is well known, Hamas is dug in underground in the so-called Gaza Metro, these hundreds of miles of underground tunnels. But Hamas also exists abroad. There are Hamas forces in Mexico and
Really?
UK and South America. There might even be some in the United States of America, believe it or not. And so, and of course, there was an article in the press the other day about Hamas basically being financed from Istanbul in Turkey, or Turkey. And of course, Turkey has been a staunch critic of Israel. So this goal of destroying Hamas probably will not be realized. The problem in Israel is that in some ways the populace is on fire as a result of October 7th. In some ways, the Arab street is driving the response by states like Yemen. The Israeli street is helping to propel Mr. Netanyahu. And of course, he's probably a dead man walking, in the sense that as soon as this conflict ends, he'll have to face the music and may go to jail, which then gives him an incentive to continue and escalate the conflict.
Right. Yeah, it's very Trumpian in that way. You know, you say that they're on fire because of October 7th, because of that attack. Do you think that, though, erases the things that put Israelis in the street to protest against Netanyahu in unprecedented numbers earlier this year?
Well, as the United Nations Secretary General has said, and he came under fire for this, October 7th did not occur in a vacuum. I mean, October 7th was not day one of humanity. October 7th, in many ways, was a response to 1947, 1948, and the Nakba, or the catastrophe, and the pushing out of many Palestinians of their homes in what is today's Israel. And with regard to the folks in the street before October 7th, it was very curious that they were not necessarily protesting against enhanced settlements on the West Bank and Palestinian soil. It was an inter-Israeli dispute.
Right, about their Supreme Court, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
But I mean, but even knowing that October 7th happens, as part of this ongoing war conflict going back to 1948, it doesn't make it justified. I mean, you don't get to kill civilians. You don't get to do that. Whether you're Hamas, whether you're the IDF, you don't get to just kill civilians. I'm sure, I think it's understandable why, the Israeli public would be up in arms about that. The question really has to do with exactly what you're saying. Is that, that march, which was those marches, which really seem to be in support of, saving their democracy, is it indicative of, more of a willingness or an understanding that there has to be real sovereignty for Palestine? A two-state solution doesn't mean, you get to control the other state. It means an autonomous, sovereign nation next door.
Well, that is the stated position in Washington right now of President Biden. There's been a kind of head fake on the part of the Israeli authorities when they give lip service to the idea of a two-state solution, but then do everything in their power to avoid it, such as building these settlements that hardly raises an outcry. And with regard to October 7th and its aftermath, pay attention to the fact that South Africa, which has one of the largest, if not the largest, Jewish populations on the African continent, nonetheless has made a referral to the International Criminal Court with regard to the bombing of civilians by Israel. Now, President Ramaphosa, even though he says he found what Hamas did on October 7th, quote, abhorrent, unquote, he's made no such referral with regard to Hamas to the International Criminal Court. And I think that probably ties into the point that folks under occupation, under international law, in many ways have quite a bit of flexibility in how they respond to that occupation, just like Nat Turner in 1831. He killed civilians as well, but I doubt if under international law, looking retrospectively, we would say he should be prosecuted for violating international law.
Well, I mean, that's a tough question because then you get into, one person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist, which is, then you get into the role of the media and the way we as nations decide which sides to take. I would stand on the fact that, regardless of the occupation, the October 7th was problematic and wrong. That said, though, what's going on right now, I feel like, I don't know. Let me ask you this. When you read Biden's op-ed, what did you walk away with? I mean, he's talking about the situation. He got a lot of praise in the mainstream media because, as you said, he points out that there should be a two-state solution. But I feel to me, it wasn't, I didn't see movement in his position. Did you?
Not at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, I think that the idea of a two-state solution, which, by the way, has been subjected to an immense amount of lip service on both sides of the Atlantic in recent years, I'm not sure if the Israeli populace, certainly not the ruling party led by Mr. Netanyahu, are willing to accede to a two-state solution. It's not clear if Hamas is willing to accede to that today, although a few years ago they indicated that they were interested in a long-term truce, which was a de facto two-state solution. With regard to the Palestinian Authority, which rules on the West Bank, they say that they're in favor of that, but their reputation is rather threadbare amongst their populace because of corruption. And so what's curious in the United States is that this idea of one state, a binational state where all rights are respected, which you would think would be consistent with the rhetoric of the United States, has been set aside to the point where Congresswoman Tlaib of Michigan was censured by her colleagues for unveiling this slogan, from the river to the sea, which has been interpreted in a wrong-headed fashion, in my opinion, as calling not only for a destruction of Israel, but liquidation of Jewish people, when, in fact, it could be interpreted as saying that Palestine, which exists on the west bank of the Jordan River, the west bank, to the sea, Gaza, on the Mediterranean Sea, should be free, or it could be interpreted as calling for a binational state of all the people.
In other words, everyone is in the state of Israel, or the state of Israel, Palestine. Everyone has rights. Everyone has autonomy and free movement, and it didn't have to be two states.
Correct. But as I said, that particular proposal may be overtaken by events because it's difficult to see folks in the Israeli population opting for a binational state. So in a sense, we're sort of stuck right now, which means we have to pay attention to external events, and in that regard, pay attention to the delegation of the Arab League in Beijing in the last 24 hours. There's going to be inordinate pressure on the United States to not only accede to a ceasefire, but also to do other measures that right now seem impossible, such as, for example, a curtailing of arms shipments to Israel.
Yeah. We're talking to Dr. Gerald Horne. We do have a lot to cover. I mean, you mentioned U.S. being pulled into this war. I feel like we're already in it, but I want to go further with what you mean by that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're a veteran with a service-connected disability that is directly impacting your ability to work, resources are available to help you find employment. VA's Veteran Readiness and Employment, or VR&E, can assist you with finding a job that uses your existing skills. Or, if you're interested in exploring a new field, a VR&E counselor can help you determine the right education or training options for a new career. Find out if VR&E is right for you by visiting va.gov/VRE today.
In association with KBLA Talk 1580, the Terry Claiborne Foundation presents its 26th annual holiday party, Saturday, December 9th, featuring live entertainment, celebrity appearances, plus food and drinks. There is a cover charge for this party of the season, but not if you're one of our special guests. All you have to do is go to our website at KBLA1580.com and sign up. That's it. That's all. Just sign up at KBLA1580.com and you could win entrance to the soiree of the season. But whether you win or not, get a ticket, support the kids, and come join us on the red carpet in your semi-formal club attire and celebrate the season with KBLA Talk 1580 and the Terry Claiborne Foundation as we collect toys for the youth in our community. That's Saturday, December 9th, 1110 South La Cienega Boulevard, just south of Olympic. It's a holiday party with a purpose.
I'm Terry Claiborne. It's going to be a party. Come hang out with us.
This holiday season, Capital One reminds you to give yourself the gift of 1.5% cash back with the Capital One Quicksilver Card.
Can I earn 1.5% cash back on birds?
Birds?
What if you sent your true love 2 turtle doves plus a partridge in a pear tree?
Sure, but why would anyone want that?
The song was very convincing.
Earn 1.5% cash back on all your holiday purchases with the Capital One Quicksilver Card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on, Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Talking with Dr. Gerald Horne, 800-920-1580, if you want to get in on the conversation. You mentioned that you feel like, Israel is on the ropes. They want to pull the United States into this conflict. But since we supply them so much money and we're even raising that money, raising the expenditure even more, tripling or quadrupling it, many of those weapons, being used on Gaza are U.S. weapons. Aren't we already involved?
Absolutely. And if you follow certain blogs by former CIA agents like Larry Johnson, for example, who now has become quite dovish in his retirement, he says that his sources tell him that with regard to U.S. military hospitals, Ramstein in Germany, Walter Reed outside of in the Washington, D.C. area, that there are U.S. soldiers trickling into those facilities with injuries that are suspected of being caused in that theater. Now, of course, that theater could include the U.S. forces improperly sited in Syria, which has been subjected to bombing by Israel in recent days, U.S. forces in Iraq, for example, U.S. forces in Turkey. Recall that there was a massive demonstration on the NATO base in Turkey just a week or so ago. So, yes, the United States is already involved. The question is, how deep will the involvement go?
Right. So when you say showing up at Walter Reed, the implication is that they could have been in Gaza, or they could have been in Israel. They could have been a number of other places that you mentioned, but they also could be directly involved on the ground there.
Well, and we already know that top-level U.S. officials have been in and out of Israel. I mean, it wasn't just Joe Biden giving Netanyahu a bear hug on the tarmac of an Israeli airport. All manner of U.S. officialdom have been in and out of Israel, advising them with regard to this very difficult and nettlesome problem of how do you route thousands of fighters out of tunnels. Now, the United States has had experience with that. One of the reasons why the United States lost in Vietnam was because the Vietnamese had built similarly miles of tunnels that flummoxed the U.S. effort to defeat them. And so that kind of counsel is valued very highly by the Israelis right now.
Yeah, let's go to Dee calling us from Long Beach. Good morning, Dee.
Good morning, Dominique. Good morning, Dr. Gerald Blow Your Horn. To put it succinctly, Donald J. Trump is good for me, but bad for Black America and ultimately bad for peace. He should never have moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. It sends the wrong signal. If and only if I'm a one-issue candidate, it would be for free health care. which is why I rebranded to a Roosevelt Republican. Which Roosevelt? Both, actually. If I were a two-issue voter, it would be because he would light a fire under black people and black men in particular to find a solution to this miserable circumstances in which we find ourselves.
Okay, I want to have Dr. Horne respond. When you say DJT is good for you, you're talking about because of your finances?
Yeah, I'm talking about my finances.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so Dr. Horne, D said a bunch of things.
Well, I'm not sure how to respond. With regard to Jerusalem, I agree with that point. In fact, you may notice that on Al Jazeera, which has ratings going through the roof in light of October 7th because of dissatisfaction with MSNBC, CNN, et cetera, when they have reporters reporting from Jerusalem, the tagline is "Occupied Jerusalem," believe it or not, which you will not find on Fox, MSNBC, or CNN. With regard to healthcare, I agree with that as well. The healthcare system in this United States of America, which eats up about 17% of the economy, it's obviously insufficient on the basis of not only not serving the masses, but particularly being unhelpful and unhealthy for the black population. There have been a number of books lately written about health disparities with regard to how black people are maltreated and mistreated in the medical care system. So I agree with the caller with regard to the healthcare system as well.
Yeah. Okay, I want to go back to a couple of other things that keep coming up when it comes to situation in the Middle East. A lot of people are talking about oil. Is oil playing a role here? There's supposed to be oil off the coast of Gaza.
Well, natural gas off the coast of Gaza, but since the Israelis, in a sense, already have jurisdiction over Gaza, I'm not sure if that's the motive force with regard to this present conflict. There's also been talk about the Israelis seeking to build a canal. The Ben Gurion, yeah. Which then would cut through the occupied territories. It would also deliver a blow to Egypt, which Israel is upset right now because they would not accept thousands of Palestinians being shipped into the Sinai Desert. And the Egyptians garner billions of dollars every year from the Suez Canal. So there are multiple reasons for this conflict on both sides of the equation.
Yeah. When you talk about, one of the things that worries me about President Biden's approach right now is that he says there can be no real end to the war until Israel destroys Hamas. And to me, that seems like saying the war will go on forever because, I do think the comparison to the Taliban is an apt one, where you had, Netanyahu cooperating with Hamas to a point and then, finding himself in a terrible conflict with them, much like the United States and the Taliban, except for that we spent trillions, and we did not defeat the Taliban. So why would we expect that Israel would have a better outcome than we would in completely eradicating a group that we've designated as a terrorist group? And why do the civilians on the ground have to constantly sacrifice until we can reach this goal?
It is a real head scratcher with regard to this alleged goal of defeating Hamas.
Excuse me, Dr. Horne. I lost track of the time. We got news, traffic, and sports. I'm going to get your response to that when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A Los Angeles, California judge is ruling rapper A$AP Rocky, who is black, must stand trial on charges he fired a gun at a former friend in 2021. Rocky has pleaded not guilty to 2 felony counts of assault, with the judge making the ruling at a preliminary hearing. The judge found that there was sufficient evidence to go to trial. Rocky's attorney Joe Tacopina said the rapper will be vindicated. Taylor Swift and Drake, who is black, are neck and neck for the most career wins at the Billboard Music Awards. Swift took home 10 trophies on Sunday night at the award ceremony, including top artist, top female artist, and top Billboard 200 artist. She was the biggest female winner of the night and is now tied with Drake as the artist with the most wins in BBMA's history, with 39 awards each. On Sunday, Drake took home 5 awards. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wynn on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Looking for a better way to get around LA? SoCal 511 gives you real-time traffic alerts to help you find faster ways to get around LA County. It's totally free and helps motorists easily find fast track and roadside assistance services. Visit go511.com or dial 511 on your phone.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. The Clippers get their first road win of the season. They were in San Antonio last night and won by 25. Best stat of the night belongs to James Harden. 10 assists and no turnovers in 28 minutes. The Lakers play Utah tonight at Crypto.com, 7 p.m. tip-off on TNT. Sad news in the Lakers family. The brother of former Lakers star Michael Cooper was fatally shot early Sunday morning in Washington Park, a park in Pasadena. Mickey Cooper was gunned down in the same park where he and Michael grew up playing basketball. Pasadena police have a 24-year-old male suspect in custody. Mickey Cooper was 64. UCLA's men's basketball team lost by 2 to number 4 Marquette in the Maui Invitational. The USC women's team got 15 points from freshman Juju Watkins to beat Seton Hall in a first-round tournament game in the Bahamas. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, Maisha Cairo here, KBLA, live at Chase Bank on Crenshaw and Vernon for the In This Together tour with female business owners, a day of empowerment, community panels, and best of all, tips on building business from marketing to capital. I'm here with Lisa Stevens, Senior Business Consultant with Chase for Business. Lisa, what's one tip you'd give to business owners here in the Crenshaw area?
I love that you ask that question. I'm originally from Brooklyn, and I grew up in an area that's very similar to Crenshaw. So this is near and dear to my heart. And if I could only leave a business owner with just one, I would tell the business owner to identify their why. And I think that is so important because your why is going to be that strength on those days where you feel like you're struggling. Your why is going to be that stepping stone. Those days that you want to give up, your why is going to be the reason that you get back up.
And how would you advise business owners looking to acquire capital? What do they need to know before stepping inside the branch to ask for funding?
So 3 things. I do want to share this when it comes to the power of capital and just finding those resources. Understand that capital is a 3-part of a business, right? It's not always about the monetary piece, but if you first put that intellectual, right? What do I need to know? That social, who I need to know, that will help you to then package for that monetary piece. So no matter who you're banking with, you should know your banker. Never walk into a bank and you're transactional only.
It's just like Lisa to drop gems. I'm Maisha Cairo in the community for KBLA with JP Morgan Chase.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now, you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears, thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable with Always Fear No Gush.
Ask any former youth in foster care what they missed most while growing up, and they will most likely answer, someone to show me unconditional love. Now, isn't that something we all wished we could experience? Here in Los Angeles, up to 40% of homeless youth on our streets identify as LGBTQ+. The most prevalent reason for homelessness among this population is the rejection they've experienced from their own families. The LA County Department of Children and Family Services and Raise a Child are searching for safe, nurturing, and affirming foster parents within our community willing to stand up and serve all children and youth in foster care, especially LGBTQ youth. Learn the many benefits to becoming a foster parent. Attend a free Raise a Child virtual or in-person informational event to learn more. RSVP now at raiseachild.org. That's raiseachild.org. And thank you.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
You got a big mouth. Hello, Joe. You're up. Welcome.
We're unapologetically progressive, and we don't black down.
Dr. Gerald Horne is leading the KBLA delegation right now. You know, when you're not on the air for any short period of time, people ask for you, Dr. Horne. They ask for you in the DMs. They ask for you on the phone. What does Dr. Horne say about this? That's what I've titled today's show. What does Dr. Horne have to say about it? So we really appreciate you taking time out and spending it with us, and tell us about the books and, you know, where to find the books. I want to make sure we always support you just as you've supported us over the years.
Well, I'm happy to report that on February 3rd, just a few months from now, I'll be in Leimert Park. It's a Saturday, doing a book launch of my latest books. Just stay tuned to my Facebook or Instagram in order to get the details. But in any case, the new books are Acknowledging Radical Histories, which is a conversation between myself and a younger historian, and I Dare Say, which is a reader, a compilation of articles and essays I've written in the past few decades. And next year, I'm publishing a book on Southern California, on the Panthers in particular, but radicalism generally in the 20th century.
Yeah, prolific is an understatement for you. So hopefully, Dr. Horne, that means you'll stop by and visit us, and we'll be live on the YouTubes together, reunited on YouTube in the KBLA studio.
Reunited, and it feels so good.
Absolutely. All right, so points of clarification here. You talked about the Ben Gurion Canal and the oil, and the point that Israel already controls Gaza. Does that mean that that the canal is also a moot point as far as a motivation for what's happening now?
I think the canal might be a moot point, but mostly for political reasons. As I said, and as many people have recognized, Israel is really fighting for its existence as a state right now. There's no guarantee that the present configuration of Israel can survive this present crisis. And so the idea of building a canal that would challenge Egypt, I think that's
politically fraught, right? Okay. Yeah. Well, you know, the talking. There's so many talking points that, you know, and when it comes to this particular conflict, that are really hard to navigate because they're a combination of things that are true and things that are misleading. And I'll give you an example. Israel has a right to defend itself. Of course they do. Every sovereign nation has a right to defend themselves. But the reason that I say it's fraught is because, you know, it's somehow makes people think that if we do not support the bombing, that means, you know, the bombing of Gaza, that means that we automatically don't support Israel's right to exist. And to me, that's nonsensical.
Not only nonsensical, but it was actually an issue. Recall the demonstration that took place in Washington just a few days ago, where Van Jones, the liberal black CNN commentator, was hooted down.
Is he liberal, though?
Well, that's just shorthand. I mean, we could go into a whole essay on Van Jones.
Okay, sorry.
But he was hooted down because he said, I'm a man of peace, and people hooted him down, said, no ceasefire, no ceasefire. And also on the platform was this so-called Christian Zionist, whose theology suggests that he is not opposed to an apocalypse in Israel, because I guess he feels that will lead to a second coming of his Lord Savior, Jesus Christ, etc. And he shared a platform with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and the MAGA speaker, Michael Johnson. So the pro-Israel, pro-Zionist lobby really needs to check themselves.
I guess what I'm trying to get to is some understanding about, some of the things that are confusing for people, and it's really a lot. I know people say it's a complex issue, and the pushback is no, it's not complex. But what I'm saying is that I think some of these, like what you were saying about from the river to the sea, we talked about it at length on this show. For people that say it, that are not Hamas, they're talking about. They say they are talking about Palestinians having equal rights, autonomy, and the freedoms that we all cherish throughout that area, throughout Israel, throughout and in Palestine. And again, this idea that means the destruction of the Israeli state. I don't think that's what most people who say that are calling for.
And I don't think that that's what Congresswoman Tlaib was calling for, and she
No.
was the person who was censured. And with regard to your prior point, states have the right to defend themselves, but there is international law with regard to the inappropriate nature of killing civilians. And to this point, Israel has killed thousands of civilians, heavily women and children. And that is one of the reasons why South Africa has made a referral to the International Criminal Court.
I mean, we're
By the
over
way,
11,000 right now, right? Well over 11,000, which is insane.
And of course, that referral has been joined by Colombia, or the country on the northern coast of South America, and Algeria probably will be joined by others as well. And then the Center for Constitutional Rights, a public interest law firm in Manhattan, has filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration claiming that they've abdicated their responsibility to adhere to the Genocide Convention, which, of course, if the Biden administration chooses to ignore that lawsuit, which is likely, then that'll be grist for the mill for the International Criminal Court, which could then charge the U.S. administration with being aiders and abettors and accomplices with regard to these putative violations of international law by Israel.
All right, I want to hit these phones really quick. We've got Morris calling from Inglewood. Good morning, Morris.
Good morning to everyone within the sound of my voice. Good morning, Dr. Horne. You know you've been in Florida. I got a question for you. Why is it that Louis Farrakhan refers to contemporary Jewish people as being imposters? I'll take your response off the air. Thank you,
Oh,
sir.
boy. Okay, thanks, Morris.
Well, you'd have to ask Mr. Farrakhan why he does that. I just point you in that direction.
Right. So in the middle of all this conversation, see, that's what I'm talking about, people getting confused and caught up. There's all of these other, debates or threads about, who are the real Jews and blah, blah, blah. And some real anti-Jewish sentiment or anti-Semitism that comes out. We were talking about this earlier, out of people conflating the Jewish religion or the Jewish people with the Israeli government.
Well, if you look at the demonstrations, the tying up of Grand Central Station in Manhattan, the siege of the DNC in Washington just a few days ago, the attempt to stop a ship from leaving the port of Oakland to Israel with military materiel, oftentimes these demonstrations are led by Jewish Voice for Peace, which obviously is a Jewish organization.
And one of those that's been banned from Harvard and other campuses. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I do think it's important to be really clear that, anti-Jewish rhetoric, behavior, thought, conspiracy theories are wrong, no matter how terrible the policies of Benjamin Netanyahu are.
Well, with regard to defending the Palestinians and critiquing Mr. Netanyahu, as the past 45 minutes have shown, we have a lot of ammunition already without descending into conspiracy theories, descending into anti-Jewish fervor and the like. As a matter of fact, I think that we should try to steer clear of that because it's not necessary.
Well, and it's also wrong, and it's not necessary. And I think it makes things blurry. That's why I say Netanyahu is their Trump, but really I think it was you who said he's far worse than even the 45th president.
Oh, clearly. I mean, Netanyahu makes Trump seem like a left-wing radical. If you look at some of the members of his cabinet, for example, they've been trafficking on this side of the Atlantic what we would call Ku Klux Klan type language. These are folks who support the killings on the West Bank. In fact, because we've understandably been riveted on what's happening in Gaza, as we speak on the West Bank, the other part of Palestinian territory, there's been a reign of terror of late. As a matter of fact, there was an article in the New York Times a few days ago about how the United States is shipping rifles to Israel that are then being handed over to settlers who then use them against Palestinians, trying to chase them off their land. This is taking place as we speak, this kind of reign of terror.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but in Joe Biden's op-ed, he does mention the settlers, but he equates Russia, Putin, and Hamas, as Hamas, as if Hamas is to Palestine what Putin is to Ukraine, and that all of this to me, it just makes it more and more confusing. But I think, despite all of that, and even despite some confusion, the American people and the White House are not on the same page. I want to get your reactions to what you think the implications are for the Biden administration when we come forward, the elections, on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique Baraka when we come forward.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Hey, everything okay?
Yes, I'm fine.
Honey. Hey, I'm here for you. Tell me about school today.
When kids can't find the right words, music can help them sound it out. Talk to the kids in your life about their emotional well-being. Find tools and resources at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
Hello?
Man, where are you? I thought you were coming.
I can't. I'm in bed with the flu.
The flu? Whoa. Grandma's about to crowd surf. Man, I'll call you back.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is safe, effective, and you can get it at the same time as your COVID-19 vaccine. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
Only 1 in 5 people with autism are employed, despite many having the skill set and desire to work.
Maybe it's because employers don't know what kind of jobs they can do. Like, what about a programmer?
That's a job for someone with autism.
How about a healthcare worker?
Yep, that is too. People with autism can do a lot of different jobs, but often get overlooked due to outdated stigmas. Introducing WIN by Autism Speaks. We help businesses lead the way in inclusive hiring.
What about a ranch hand?
To learn more, go to autismspeaks.org/win.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for progressive talk radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
Talking with Dr. Gerald Horne. Sorry to cut you off there. I sometimes I get caught up in the conversation with you, Dr. Horne, and there's so much to cover here. And you read 7 papers or more every single day.
Yes, and there's a lot right now on YouTube in particular with regard to this crisis. I won't mention any sources, although people can email me and I'll be happy to tell them. They can just look at what I say on my various YouTube appearances as well. And I think that's understandable because, as you said at the top, this crisis could trigger World War III. And the attempt by Israel to lure the United States into this conflict in order to bombard Iran, and that's not beyond the realm of possibility, could be that trigger. Now, you mentioned Mr. Biden's op-ed.
Yeah.
And what's interesting there is, just like our conversation this morning, we've talked mostly about Israel-Palestine, although the op-ed also dealt with the Ukraine.
Right.
And I think that one of the reasons we talk mostly about Israel-Palestine is not only because of all these demonstrations that have broken out from the Atlantic to the Pacific, but also I think that this Ukraine crisis is reaching to a conclusion with the Zelensky government facing defeat. And I think that that's the import of all of these articles that have appeared. You might have heard of the Time magazine piece where his staff referred to Mr. Zelensky as delusional. He's in a sniping war with his generals who fired back in The Economist, the British-based weekly, where they suggested that the war is not going very well because of Mr. Zelensky, a former TV comic, his interference in their plans. And then the Washington Post, before that, had an article a week or two ago that suggested that the blowing up of the Nord Stream pipeline from Russia into Germany, it was always a mystery who did it. The sources from Zelensky's office say that it's his generals, who he's in this sniping war with, who actually committed this crime. And so the Zelensky ship is sinking. The visits to Kiev, Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin, CIA Chief Bill Burns, probably won't arrest that crisis. And it's going to be a devastating blow to NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And that will have manifold consequences.
It's just making my head explode right now. So, and what's the way forward for the U.S. in that situation? I mean, it seems like we just love to get bogged down in endless, hopeless situation, one after another.
Well, if you read between the lines of the reporting on the Burns and Austin trip, you'll easily come to the conclusion that Washington is trying to nudge Zelensky into negotiating with Russia. It reminds me of these cowboy movies where the cowboy backs out of the saloon with both guns blazing. And so the United States is trying to back out of the saloon, but not trying to give an indication that they're pulling the plug on Zelensky, which is precisely what they're doing. Because that will not be a good look going into this November election, 2024, despite the fact that many conservatives in the U.S. Senate in particular have turned against this idea of further aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, and the American people are turning against it too, by the way. It's not just the conservatives. I mean, I think the public opinion on, a blank check, I think, is the problem because of the economic pressure that people are facing.
Well, I paid attention to that public service announcement. I think it was your voice, with regard to having people drop off coats and blankets
right.
To your studio or the unhoused. And so it's rather anomalous, to put it mildly, that we're talking about this unhoused crisis. At the same time, billions of dollars are found to ship to a sinking enterprise in Ukraine. There's something wrong with that picture.
Yeah, even though, again, I mean, it would be hypocritical to say you support sovereignty for Palestine and not support sovereignty for Ukraine. If we're going to respect people's right to self-govern and have control of their own borders and resources, we have to be consistent, right? I know that sounds laughable, but yeah.
It certainly does in this era of hypocrisy and double standards, which we just made reference to with regard to the crisis in Palestine. But in any case, the question is, why is it the United States government has to be the enforcer of international law?
Right.
That's not how international law is supposed to work. Who appointed the United States to be the world's policeman?
Well, I'm trying to remember the exact wording in the op-ed by Biden. He says we are the something nation that everybody looks to, which sounds a little bit like a combo of manifest destiny and American exceptionalism with a new term, or maybe it's not new. I'm just not paying attention. We are that special nation that has to fix everything, is pretty much what he says.
And we would be remiss if we failed to mention that the stock prices of corporations like Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, the military-industrial complex, they're going through the roof because shipping weapons to Israel, shipping weapons to Ukraine, shipping weapons to Taiwan, they come from somewhere.
It's the essential nation. That's what he says. The United States is the essential. Yeah, they come from here, right?
Right, exactly. And so if you're invested in those corporations, you're making out like a bandit right now, which obviously gives you an incentive to then make campaign donations to politicians who will continue these policies irrespective of the downside risk that it poses, not least World War III.
But yet the American people seem to have a different viewpoint, or at least the ones in the streets do. I think this is going to have significant implications for the 2024 election. Is the Biden-Harris administration going to pay a price for their foreign policy in the 2024 election?
That is a distinct possibility. You might have seen the latest polls that suggest that his popularity rating is about 40. And you might have also paid attention to the Democratic Party conference in Sacramento this past weekend.
Which was shut down,
where not only was it shut down, but Congresswoman Barbara Lee found her voice and came out for a ceasefire, which set her aside from Congressman Adam Schiff, Congresswoman Katie Porter, who were not as bold as she was. The question is, will that give a boost to her flagging campaign?
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. I mean, I think she needs a boost of dollars. I don't think it's just the positions. I think it's a boost of dollars that's needed. We just got a couple minutes here before we hand off to Tavis Smiley. What would you like to share with us this morning? You have any good news, Dr. Horne? Anything that's inspiring you?
Well, just this past weekend, there was a meeting in Ghana on reparations involving not only Africans, but a sizable delegation from the United States as well. At the same time, Chancellor Schultz of Berlin was in Nigeria, and he was being peppered with questions about reparations to Namibia. Recall that the first genocide of the 20th century came at the hands of the Germans against the Nama and Herero people of then German Southwest Africa, not to mention what happened in German East Africa, now Tanzania, where there were also tens of thousands massacred. And even though Berlin has paid reparations to Israel, even though Israel was in existence in 1945 when the Holocaust was concluding, Berlin has been unenthusiastic, shall we say, about doling out reparations with regard to Africa.
Yeah, it's quite stunning. Maybe we'll do a whole show about it one day. Dr. Gerald Horne, congratulations on your 2 books coming out and your visit to Leimert Park. We look forward to seeing you in February.
I look forward to seeing you all as well.
And Tavis Smiley is up next. Man, time flies when you're on the radio. Call me tomorrow if you didn't get through today. I always want to talk to you, or hit me up on social media. KBLA 1580 on every platform. I'm at DiPrima Radio, DIPRIMA, and then radio. Yep. And the quote for today, well, I'm going to go to my dad because I don't have one written down. A man is either free or he's not free. There can be no apprenticeship for freedom. Until tomorrow, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A Los Angeles, California judge is ruling rapper A$AP Rocky, who is black,